Start. MTC 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 1. Architecture has always depended on wealthy patrons or the health of the surrounding economy, and some of its current troubles are cyclical. With enough economic growth, building will return and some architects will work again. But the bust of 2008 was not followed by a boom that restored employment or stability. 2008. In fact, some of the larger trends, both inside and outside the profession, are discouraging. Among them are government austerity that leads to less high-end designing in the United States and Europe, corporate consolidation that squeezes out innovative small firms, and the diminishing fortunes of a middle class that once drove an important sector of home design. Sorting out which changes are cyclical and which are structural can be difficult while they're happening. What we can say for sure is that 6 years after the Wall Street crash, many architects are still struggling, and the field and the larger world seem to be changing in ways that will make the profession increasingly inaccessible. Wall Street 6. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 2. Although aquaculture occurs in a controlled environment, cases of escapes, contamination, and spread of disease have been documented, all of which may harm the natural ecosystem in the surrounding area. For example, studies in Chile have shown that escaped salmonids can colonize their new, non-native environment, resulting in resource competition and potentially altering local ecosystem processes. Shrimp production in Asia and other parts of the world has resulted in the deforestation of mangroves and wetlands in order to create space for shrimp ponds. The cultivation of carnivorous fish depends on the extraction of wild fin fish that are converted to meal for fish food. In some parts of the world, this has meant depleted stocks for local fishermen, who still depend on these species for a supplement to their diet or for income. Experts have recently recommended that native herbivorous or filter feeders be farmed, rather than non-native carnivorous species, in order to avoid some of these potential problems. Another suggested solution is to farm exclusively in terrestrial, man-made tanks where all stages of production could be managed, including the disposal of waste. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 3. In one experiment, a target individual who refused to complete a racist task was appreciated by neutral judges, but disliked by participants who had been asked to complete the racist task prior to the target and who overwhelmingly did so without complaining. To participants who had willingly gone along with the problematic behavior, the otherwise exemplary stance of the rebel apparently represented a threat to their moral self-regard, which they addressed by putting him or her down, and reporting less respect for, and attraction to, the rebel. Demonstrating the role of the self-concept, participants whose self-concept had been secured before seeing the rebel, by reflecting on an important quality or value, and how they had recently demonstrated it, did not show the same backlash, even if they had done the racist task first. In fact, participants thus self-affirmed were able to learn from the rebel's gesture. They admitted having had more freedom at the time of the task, and reported less comfort with their own choice. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 4. The effective use of time is one of the ultimate ways to display authority, even when you don't have it. Whoever controls time controls the situation in most instances. They will always remind anyone who wants to meet with them that their time is valuable. However, there may be situations where you will want to reverse your use of tight time tactics. Let's say you have agreed to meet with one of your peers to discuss a difficult situation that has developed between your two respective departments. You need more help from your peer than she needs from you to get things resolved, even though you've told her your time is limited. When she enters your office at the appointed hour, take your watch off ostentatiously, and place it face down on your desk. Say, "My time belongs to you for as long as you need it." Watch the cooperation level of your peer go up exponentially at the outset of your meeting. You'll be able to get anything you want from her. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 5-7. It was the day before Anne's wedding, so the house was full of people, all very busy getting things ready for the next day. Anne. They were lifting clothes out of boxes and getting them out of cupboards, to be ironed and hung up. There were the pretty flowered dresses of the bridesmaids, Anne's lovely wedding dress and veil, Mum's new outfit and hat, and Dad's suit. Anne. It was so busy in the house that Dad had gone into the garden to cut the grass and to do a bit of digging. Suddenly Mum came to the back door and called out, "What trousers have you got on?" "My old green gardening pair, of course," Dad replied. "Why do you want to know?" Mum seemed quite worried. "I've got your best suit out of the cupboard and there's only the jacket on the hanger, no trousers. Do you know where they are?" Dad said he had no idea, but he'd come and look. He searched through his cupboard and everyone else's cupboards, but they weren't there. Then other people joined in the search, but it was no good, and soon everyone was worried except Anne. Anne. She was laughing. "You'll have to walk me up the church aisle in your best jacket and your old green gardening trousers, Dad," she said. "Then everyone will remember my wedding." Soon everyone was laughing and thinking of the unwedding things they could wear, their aprons or their crash helmets. Just then the doorbell rang and Mum opened the door. Anne's grandpa, a retired tailor, was standing there with Dad's best trousers hanging over his arm. Anne. He was surprised to find them all laughing and even more surprised when they all shouted, "Hooray! The trousers are here!" Grandpa explained that he'd noticed a button that was loose when Dad had last worn them and he'd taken the trousers home to sew the button on properly. Then he'd forgotten to bring them back. How pleased everyone was! Anne gave Dad a hug. "Anne. I'm glad we've found your trousers," she said. "But it's you I want at my wedding, and I really wouldn't mind what you wore, even those old green gardening trousers." MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 8. In pluralistic societies, ethnic minorities and indigenous groups sometimes ask the legal system to take their cultural background into account in criminal and civil cases. Most individuals, when first hearing of the cultural defense, immediately reject it for fear that it would lead to anarchy. If each person could demand exemptions from the law, then the law would be powerless to hold society together. Ethnic minorities should change their behavior so it conforms to the law of the land. When in Rome, do as the Romans do has been the conventional wisdom for centuries. The official policies of essentially all nation-states mirror these beliefs. Indeed, most governments favor assimilation over the accommodation of cultural differences. This view, which is widely accepted by the public and government elites, has complicated efforts to raise cultural defenses in many instances. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. 2-1, Unit 10. 1-3 Exercise 9. Individuals who score high on conscientiousness are particularly likely to satisfy traditional definitions of success. They perform better in academic pursuits and in measures of occupational achievement than those who are low in conscientiousness. It should be noted, though, that these successes are most frequently found in courses and careers that stress conventional problem solving, while those who are high in openness excel at tasks that involve coming up with original ways of doing things. Highly conscientious people are punctual and persevering, they can focus intently on the activities in front of them. This laser focus, however, might work better in some fields than others. For example, Robert and Janice Hogan, pioneers in the study of personality and organizations, devised a study in which jazz musicians rated their fellow musicians on how good they were as performers. Robert Janice Hogan. Those who scored high in conscientiousness were rated by their peers as less effective. Perhaps this is because musicians who intensely concentrate on their playing may be inhibiting the spontaneity crucial to improvisational jazz. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2.1, Unit 10. 1.3 Exercise 10. A possible explanation for the value of writing is that it allows people to express themselves. If the driving process is self-expression, one could argue that both verbal and nonverbal forms of expression would provide comparable benefits. It should be noted, however, that traditional research on the venting of emotions has failed to support the clinical value of emotional expression in the absence of cognitive processing. A recent experiment by Anne Krantz and James W. Pennebaker sought to learn if the disclosure of a trauma through dance or bodily movement would bring about health improvements in ways comparable to writing. Anne Krantz, James W. Pennebaker. In the study, students were asked to express a traumatic experience using bodily movement, to express an experience using movement and then write about it, or to exercise in a prescribed manner for 3 days, 10 minutes per day. 103. Whereas the two movement expression groups reported that they felt happier and mentally healthier in the months after the study, only the movement plus write group evidenced significant improvements in physical health and grade point average. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2.1, Unit 10. 1.3 Exercise 11. Increased individualism has produced norms of greater autonomy between the generations, and social protection schemes have contributed towards residential and financial independence between the generations. The separation between public and private life is a cogent characteristic of individualistic contemporary societies. Faced with increased uncertainty, the symbol of modernity, individuals tend to retreat to the cocoon of family and friends. The modem family has entered into the sphere of intimacy, and has become a central place for the construction of personal identity. However, these changes have not reduced the ties between the state and the family. On the contrary, the link between them has been redefined with a deeper interdependence emerging. This interdependence is manifest in legal structures and through the welfare state. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC 2.1, Unit 10. 1.3 Exercise 12-14. Matt was teaching dance at a boarding school for emotionally disturbed children. Matt. Their average attention span may have been 15 seconds. 1.5. One young boy, an 11-year-old, was an exception. 1.1. His concentration was intense for the 35 minutes of the dance class. 3.5. At the end of class, Matt said to him, "You're great. What's your name?" Matt. One of the supervisors of the school rushed over to him and said, "Oh, his name is Michael. He's very intelligent, but he doesn't speak." Michael. In the following weeks of dance class, he built choreography for Michael and his classmates. Michael. In the spring, they were scheduled to dance in the event of the year. Matt used Michael as the leader and invented an energetic dance to utilize his students' explosive energy. Michael. All throughout the practice, Michael never spoke. Michael. That spring, dancers from 22 different schools came together for the event of the year. 2.2. The biggest challenge was how to get 2,000 dancing children on stage for the opening number. 2,000. For this, a system has been developed, called the runs. The stage is divided with colored lines of box shapes on the stage floor. At the end of the overture, the dancers burst onto the stage, running to their allotted boxes, where they explode into the opening dance number. On Matt's cue, the runs began. Matt. After about a minute, he realized something was wrong. 1. On stage left, children were colliding into each other behind some obstacle. He ran over to discover the source of the problem, Michael and his classmates. Michael. Michael was dancing energetically, but he was blocking other dancers trying to get through. Michael. Matt rushed up to them, and he yelled, "You're in the wrong place. Back up." Matt. Michael, with his eyes blazing, and legs and arms spinning in dance movements, yelled out, "Oh, I am so happy. Oh, it's so good." Michael. Matt backed off, stunned into silence. Matt. He sat down in the first row of the audience with several of the supervisors and teachers, their mouths open in wonder. No one danced better or with more passion in the whole show that night than Michael. Michael. MTC. Good job.